Time to make some buttons. We need about 10 inches of length. We're going to skive it, make it thinner, tie some knots inside the shoe, keep them on our feet. Meantime, just tracing this out. So from here, my cut mat is a super handy dandy tool. It gives me 10 inches to here, and they don't have to be perfect. This is just a piece of scrap from when I cut out my uppers. So I'll do it. Most of this leather is going to get cut away, so we don't really have to worry about its shape or the fact that some of it's been stretched, marked from the edge of it. Let's cut these comets out. Glasses help. But I'm trying to thin the leather basically so that I can tie this into knots inside my shoe eventually. Now, again, there are people who make this look easy. I'm not one of them. Yep, there it is. I've cut it off. This is why we cut it long, because those of us who aren't good at it are going to mess it up. But we have to be able to cut this into two and insert it through holes in the shoe in this area. I've got my marks inside, but I haven't punched it yet. So this will be in this here. And it's going to act as our buttonhole. This is where we're going to put our button that comes from here. So, as long as I've got enough material left to tie a knot, I'm good. So it doesn't matter that I cut off that bit. And I'm making it thin enough so that I can actually tie this material into a knot, and it'll sit nice and flush against the foot. Feels pretty good. Yeah, definitely go watch some videos if that's a skill you want to learn. Go watch somebody who's good at it, because they make it look easy and you might learn something. The silver marker wipes off nicely, so that's why we're using this. Okay. And I need 3/4 and 3/4, but I do want it square. Not bad for eyeballing it. So there's my 10-inch. I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch. And we'll again. This is really squishy leather, so it's going to move around a lot on me. But it's going to make nice buttons. So, this is going to give us 3/4 inch strips. But we want 4 triangles. So from here, I'm going to bring this down so that I have just the tiniest tail on one end. And the same thing over here. From the corner to the tiniest tail up here. And I'm going to need that tail. Can't be nothing. It's got to be some distance. Okay, so if you can see this at the end where I've got it marked, can you see that? Is that in the light? So that's 10 inches long, and each of the marks is 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to cut those. If I can find my shears. This is a really beautiful doe skin. So it's soft and supple and just a beautiful suede on one side. So each one of these triangles is going to be, oh, there, just shy of 3/4 of an inch by about 2 millimeters. So, and we're going to roll these up and dunk them in water. Let them get real soft. While we wait for those buttons to soften up a little bit, we're going to come over here. There's 2 back holes. We're going to open those up where I'm using a chopstick because that's what I have handy. Making it a little bigger so I can get a hold of my button ends. I'm going to load these babies in there. Now, if I have trouble, I can grab them with the tool. And remember, I'm no expert skiver, so I don't have really tiny tails to grab a hold of. So I'm going to pull them in tight as I can. So this is the toggle that's going to hold our button. Now, this is going to sound like blasphemy, but you remember, when we turned this shoe, we're going to unturn it now. Just going to turn the heel, pop it back out. And then each one of these gets its own knot. So a simple knot. I'm going to use my awl to hold this knot up close to the body of the shoe as I tighten it. I want this as close to this leather as I can get it, keep it, because this wants to be snug, really, really tight up to the shoe. Looks like I failed pretty miserably. We're going to do the other one now. See if I can fail twice in a row. It'll be awesome. Work with it. snug it down as tight as you can get it. Push this knot towards the shoe. Twist it with your pliers each direction. Both knots. We want it flush up against the shoe. Can you see what we're doing there? Flush up against the shoe. Tight as we can get it. Gonna hammer those knots a little bit. Hammer them flat. Just let the weight of the hammer do the work. We don't want to break them. Just want them to be kind of flat in there. Let the leather loosen up a little bit. Now that that's happened, we're going to tighten them down a bit more, hopefully. Turn this down. Seems like it's gonna line up just about right. Alright, now we're gonna make a button. So we're gonna cut off a little corner here, make it a little tidier. And we're going to roll it up as tight as possible. Until our roll is about 1 centimeter wide. So, not quite 1/2 inch. It's going to be about 1 centimeter. It's about right. I tried doing this with an awl, not very successful. In order to keep this nice and fat, I really want to keep my fingers on the ends of the roll, and I'm going to be using a wood chisel because it's got a nice sharp edge. It's about 1/4 inch wide. I'm not going to do too much damage to the leather, but I am going to cut it. I'm not going to compress it. So I'm going straight in, not at the center, just a little bit to the inside of the roll. I'm going to go straight through it. This is a slightly rounded chisel. You'll see that it's curved. A little bit round. I'm hoping that this is going to solve the problems that I've had trying to create this button. Going straight through the whole mass, just off center, straight down. I'm still getting a little bit of water coming out because it's been soaking in my little cup. Oh, don't. You gotta hang on to it. Mean it. Because it wants to get away from me. I gotta be in charge. There it is, coming out the other side. Make sure your fingers don't play. It's a really sharp chisel. So now I have a 1/4 of an inch hole through all of that mass. Now the tail end, I'm going to feed it through where that chisel sits. So in order to not collapse that back on itself, I'm going to pinch it on the ends, not here. I'm not going to flatten it because I want that hole to stay nice and open. So we're going to just wiggle it. I'm going to use my thumb to help me get it off. And then I'm going to use my awl. I found all the original holes, and I'm going to really open that up. Twist it. So now, you can see light through it. Hopefully, that means I can feed all of this mass from here to here through there without too much trouble, because that is going to make this button right here. So once again, I'm just opening that hole up as much as I can by inserting my awl that's wider at the back end than it is at the front, as deep as I can, twisting it to really open up that hole. And then I've twisted the end of this, which is just about a millimeter, maybe 2 millimeters wide. Remember, we cut this 10 inches long, and we trimmed it down so that it was 3/4 of an inch on one end and just less than 3/4 of an inch by a couple of millimeters. Look at that, it's coming through. So I'm going to grab that and pull it through. It looks like, though, we're going to have a pretty significant hole to get that wide enough, so 1/4 inch. And then we're going to pull it through as much as we can with our hands. Pulling that loop through. Okay, now, one trick, you can use the edge of your desk, your workbench, and kind of hold it on the edges, pinch it with your fingers, pull it down, and you'll see the water's beading up there because it's still soaking wet. And the other thing is, you can grab your pliers and grab it lengthwise. You're going to hold a lot more of the leather that way, and you're going to risk breaking it if you're holding more of the leather less. So you're not gonna cut the leather this way, and you're gonna risk breaking it a lot less if you grab more of the leather. So I'm gonna choke up a little bit, and I'm gonna keep pinching it until I've got it pulled really taut all the way through itself. See that? It's pinching up really nicely. I'm gonna try one more yank. And hallelujah. Success. there's a button. So we'll be able to keep our shoes on our feet. All right, let's pretend like we know how to make a button. I have successfully created one. Here it is. We're going to thread this into our shoe. Start at the far end. First, we're going to make these holes bigger because we're smart like that. So I'm going to use my awl with the fat shank. Stretch those out a little bit because we need them to be fat. And all right. So the button, we're going to start here, pull it through, and we're not going to crank it down because it's going to have to ride in this position. Once it's all set in there, it's settled, there's going to have to be a foot in there as well. Yeah? Not sure exactly where it needs to be. I guess if you are a very experienced shoemaker, maybe you can just do it without checking it first, but I kind of want to check it before I call it done. So I'm going to leave it a little bit loose. So this comes up in the center hole, and then it goes back down in the final hole, and we're going to tie another knot, very much like we did inside for that button holder. Pull it tight. And we're going to hammer it flat. Again, don't use any weight, or don't use any, oh, look at that, still wet. Don't use any strength, just let the weight of the hammer do the thing. Nice and flat. Tighten it down a little more. Leave a bit of a tail. And trim it off. So, there you have it, folks. Pretty sure that's a shoe. What do you know? That's a shoe. There's my button, my closure. That feels very much like a shoe. All right, the one thing I haven't done is I haven't hammered this out. All of my seams still need to be worked. Yep. Feels like this is the best option. This right here. Without a shoe jack. A little hammer. Makes that surface really tiny. We want to curve this surface up so that we're never walking on this seam, because that's what keeps it from, that's what keeps it waterproof. The more we walk off of that seam, the more we roll it up off of the ground, the more waterproof this shoe is going to be. So I'm just going to banging on it until it's comfortable. It's nice and round. Well, I hope most of that made sense for you. There's your finished shoe. Pretty comfy. I hope you like yours. And let me know what you think in the comments.